It was raining the day I died. Not the kind of rain that storms in with thunder and rage, but a quiet, steady drizzle, like the sky itself was mourning. I watched it happen. My body lay broken at the foot of the hill, blood soaked into the muddies, earth, the twisted metal of the car still hissing from the crash. And there they were, Martin, my Martin, standing beside Kathleen, the woman I used to call my best friend. He was holding her hand. He didn't cry. His face was calm, too calm, like he'd already made peace with my death. Kathleen, though, she looked like a mess of nerves and guilt, her mascara smudged under her eyes, her mouth pressed in a tight line. Still, she didn't let go of him, and he didn't pull away. The last thing I remember feeling in that life was betrayal, not just from Martin, not just from Kathleen, but from the world. I loved too hard, trusted too easy, and in the end, I was left alone. They moved on before the dirt even settled over my coffin. Then I opened my eyes again. It wasn't heaven. It wasn't hell either. It was something else. A second chance, maybe. I didn't know the rules, but I was alive. Not in my old body, no. This one was different, younger, lighter, maybe even a little stronger. But inside, I was still me. Same memories, same broken heart. I didn't come back for revenge. I came back because I needed to understand. How did it happen? Why did they betray me? I wanted to know the truth. But more than that, I wanted peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't need apologies or revenge to settle. So I started over in a small town not far from where it all happened. I changed my name, took a job at a little cafe near the coast. People there didn't ask too many questions. They thought I was quiet, maybe a little odd, but kind. I liked that. Weeks passed. I tried not to think about them, but life had other plans. One afternoon, Carmen walked into the cafe. She looked just like I remembered. Sharp eyes, confident smile, always dressed like she was going somewhere more important than here. Carmen was Martin's sister. She hadn't seen me since the funeral. She didn't recognize me, of course, but her presence pulled something tight in my chest. She ordered coffee, sat by the window, scrolled through her phone. Then she looked up, right at me. "You look familiar," she said. I smiled. "I get that sometimes." She tilted her head. "What's your name?" "Lena." I lied. "Lena," she repeated. "You new in town, just passing through." It was a weak answer, and she knew it. Carmen had always been sharp. She didn't push. Instead, she looked down at her coffee. My brother used to love cafes like this. He lost someone a while back. Still hasn't been the same. I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Yeah," she said, stirring her cup. "They say time heals, but I think time just teaches you how to live with the pain." I nodded, silently agreeing. She left after that, but not before giving me a long look, like something about me didn't sit right with her. Maybe it was the way I looked at her, or maybe she felt something she couldn't explain. The next day, I saw them, Martin and Kathleen, together. I froze where I stood, behind the counter. They were holding hands again, just like they had at my grave. My stomach twisted, but not with rage. Just sadness. Like I was watching the final chapter of a book I didn't get to finish. They didn't recognize me. That was the cruel kindness of this new life. I could stand right in front of them, and they'd never know what we'd once shared. But I didn't hate them anymore. Something inside me had changed. I still felt the echo of the hurt, the sting of abandonment, but it didn't burn like it used to. Watching them, I didn't wish them harm. I just wanted to let go, and yet I couldn't walk away. Not yet. The next few days blurred into a strange rhythm of pretending. Pretending I didn't know them. Pretending I didn't see the way Martin's hand rested on Kathleen's back as they waited in line. Pretending my heart wasn't tugging itself apart inside my chest every time he laughed at something she said. But then something shifted. Kathleen started coming in alone. She'd order chamomile tea, sit in the same corner booth, and just stare out the window. Her phone stayed untouched on the table. Her eyes looked tired. More than tired, actually. Haunted. I served her like any other customer, though every interaction felt like standing on a landmine. I wondered if she could sense anything. Guilt, recognition, some piece of me she used to know. One afternoon, she left her scarf behind. I picked it up, ran my fingers over the soft fabric. It smelled faintly of lavender, her favorite scent. A memory flashed behind my eyes. Kathleen, wrapping that same scarf around her neck in my apartment, laughing while I teased her about stealing my style. I'd loved her like a sister. The next time she came in, I held out the scarf without a word. Her eyes widened just slightly. Then she nodded, accepting it with a quiet, "Thank you. You've been coming here a lot lately," I said. She blinked, surprised. "Yeah, I guess I have. Something about this place." She looked out the window for a long moment before replying. "It's quiet. It helps." "Helps what?" I asked, almost too softly. "Everything," she said, eyes distant. "Grief, mostly. And the guilt that comes after." The words hit like a punch to the chest. She didn't know who I was, but she felt something, even if she didn't understand it. I didn't ask anything more. Some pain doesn't need explanation. Later that night, I walked by the beach alone, the wind sharp and cold against my face. Waves crashed in the dark like thunder, and the soul in the air made my eyes sting. I sat on a rock and stared at the stars, remembering how Martin once said they reminded him of me. Some stars burn out, he'd told me once. But the light takes years to disappear. It's already gone. We're just late to notice. Was that what I'd become? A burned out light still lingering in their sky. I didn't sleep much that night, and when I dreamt, I saw my grave. The stone was weathered now, the flowers wilted. Martin knelt beside it, head bowed, but beside him wasn't Kathleen. It was someone else. Carmen. In the dream she was crying, whispering something to the stone I couldn't hear. And then she looked up, right at me. I woke up gasping. The next day, Carmen came back to the cafe. She didn't sit this time. She walked right up to the counter and stared at me. Expression unreadable. "Lena," she said, voice slow, careful. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded, heart pounding. "You said you were just passing through." She continued, "But you've been here for weeks." I said nothing. "You remind me of someone," she added. "It's not just how you look, it's how you talk, how you move." My hands shook slightly as I poured her coffee. "She died," Carmen whispered. "A year ago. My brother loved her more than anything. Her name was—" "I know," I said. Her eyes widened. "I know," I repeated, softer this time. "And I'm sorry." For a moment, we stood in silence. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. "Are you her?" I didn't answer. Carmen didn't blink. She just stood there, coffee untouched, waiting, like she already knew the answer and only needed confirmation to set something inside her free. "I'm not her," I said at last. Eyes locked on hers. "But I remember her life." She exhaled slowly, the tension in her jaw softening. "That's not a no. It's not a yes either," I replied. "Some things don't fit into words." Carmen leaned against the counter, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what's crazier, that you're standing here right now, or that I believe you. I smiled faintly. Both, maybe. There was something in her eyes then. Sorrow, wonder, 1,000 questions she didn't dare ask. She sipped her coffee, still watching me like she might wake up and find me gone. He's not the same without you, she said. Martin, he pretends to be, but he's not. After their accident, he went cold, stopped laughing, stopped calling, just went numb. I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't come back to comfort him. I came back to understand why he held her hand at my grave. Why Kathleen? I asked. Carmen winced. It wasn't what you think. It wasn't cheating. They weren't together before you died. But afterward, I pushed. She nodded. Afterward, yeah. They got close. Too close. Grief does that to people sometimes. It mixes everything up. I turned away. I didn't want her to see my face. It felt like betrayal, even from where I was. I think it felt like survival. To them, Carmen said gently. 2 people drowning, clinging to the only thing they had left of you. That idea. Me, reduced to a memory passed between them. Hurt in a way I hadn't expected. It made me feel less like a person, and more like a wound they'd picked at until they couldn't tell whose pain belonged to whom. I don't hate them, I said, surprising even myself. I thought I would, but I don't. Carmen looked at me long and hard. What do you want from them? I don't know, I admitted. Closure maybe, or maybe just to let them go without the weight. You'll never get that if you keep hiding. Would you tell him? I asked. She hesitated. Would you want me to? I didn't answer right away. It was tempting to drop the mask, reveal myself, force the truth out into the open. But deep down, I knew something. The moment Martin saw me, everything would unravel. His peace, Kathleen's fragile smile, whatever life they had patched together with my absence, it would crack wide open, and I wasn't sure I had the right to do that. I don't know if he deserves that pain, I finally said, or if you do. Carmen replied. I looked at her, stunned by the honesty of it. She didn't say it cruelly, just truthfully, like a friend might. Before she left, she scribbled something on a napkin and slid it toward me. Come to the grave, she said. Tomorrow, noon. He goes every year, even though he pretends he doesn't believe in that kind of thing. If you want to see for yourself, that's your chance. I watched her walk out, feeling like the ground under me had shifted again. That night, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, studying this face, these eyes. A stranger to the world, but still me underneath. I thought about the version of myself that used to smile in photos beside Martin, that used to call Kathleen in the middle of the night to cry about dumb things that felt big back then. I wasn't that girl anymore, but part of her still lived. In me, aching, questioning, waiting. Tomorrow I would stand in front of my own grave, and I wasn't sure who I'd be when I walked away from it. The sky was grey again, fitting maybe, not raining this time, but heavy, like the clouds were holding their breath. I stood at a distance from the cemetery gate, watching the narrow path that wound toward the old part of the grounds, the part where my name was carved in stone. I hadn't been back since the accident. I wasn't sure how I'd feel seeing it. My name in granite, the years etched in neat, brutal digits. It was one thing to know you'd died. It was another to see proof of it, surrounded by dead leaves and silence. He was already there. Martin, he stood alone, hands in his coat pockets, eyes fixed on the grave like it still held answers he hadn't found. He didn't speak, didn't cry, just stood. I took a few careful steps forward, staying behind a tree. I wasn't ready for him to see me, not yet. Then he knelt, pulled something from his coat, a photo. From here I couldn't see it clearly, but I knew it. It was the one we took on our first trip together. Him in that awful green jacket. Me laughing so hard my eyes were half shut. He'd carried that photo in his wallet for years. I thought he'd thrown it out after Kathleen, but he still had it. I don't know what you'd say to me now, Martin said suddenly, and my heart seized at the sound of his voice. Maybe you'd hate me. Maybe you should. He paused. Looked down. The wind stirred a few leaves around his shoes. I thought I'd never breathe again after you died. I thought everything good was buried with you. He swallowed hard, like the words were splinters in his throat. I don't know how to explain what happened with Kathleen. It wasn't love. Not really. It was pain. It was like we were holding each other up just to stay standing. But every time I looked at her, I saw your face. Every laugh sounded like yours. Every tear felt like one you should have cried. He sat down on the cold bench beside the grave, running a hand through his hair. She left, he said, a few months ago. Said she couldn't do it anymore, that it wasn't real between us, that we were just ghosts clinging to another ghost. That stopped me. She left him. I didn't argue. Martin continued. Because she was right. His voice cracked. I loved you. I still do. Every day I wonder if I failed you, if I should have done something different, if maybe, part of you still watching and thinking I moved on too fast. With the wrong person. I stepped out from behind the tree. I didn't mean to. My feet moved before my mind gave them permission. Just a single step. But it made a sound, a crunch of leaves. He turned. Our eyes met. And for a long moment, neither of us moved. The wind picked up. A soft whistle through the branches. But the world seemed to fall completely still between us. His eyes searched my face, like he was chasing a memory. I know you, he whispered. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Just air, just heartbeats. He stood slowly, disbelief, and something rawer swimming in his expression. It can't be. No, it's not possible. I'm not who I was, I said quietly. But I remember. He took a step closer, cautiously, like I might vanish if he moved too fast. You died, he said. I did. He looked at the grave behind him, then back at me. How? I don't know, I said honestly. I just woke up. New face, new name, but the same heart. He was crying now, silently. The tears just fell without him even trying to stop them. I thought I was going crazy, he said, voice rough. After the funeral, I kept thinking I saw you in crowds, in dreams, in shadows. I thought it was grief twisting me. Maybe it was, I said. Maybe it still is. We stood there in the middle of the graveyard, surrounded by death and time and old regrets. And for the first time in this strange new life, I didn't feel alone, but I also didn't feel whole. Why did you come? He asked. To see, I said. To understand. To know if there was anything left between us. He reached for my hand, slow, unsure, and for a moment, I let him touch me. But it didn't feel like it used to. It felt like holding the past. Martin's hand in mine was warm, familiar, but it didn't make my heart race the way it used to. It made it ache, not because I still loved him, but because some part of me remembered what it felt like when I did. He let go gently, sensing it too. I never stopped loving you, he said, voice low. Even when I was with her, I told myself I had to move on, but I was lying, to her, to myself. I believed him. I truly did. But that didn't change the truth buried in the silence that followed. I'm not the woman you loved, I said. Frowned. You are. I was. And I loved you so much, Martin. You were my everything. But that version of me died on that road. This is someone else. She remembers you. She grieves you, but she doesn't belong to you anymore." He looked away, breathing through clenched teeth. "Then why come back at all?" "To let you go," I said. The words hit him hard. I saw it in the way he closed his eyes, like he was trying to hold something in. Maybe grief, maybe anger, or maybe just the pain of hearing what he always feared. He nodded slowly, jaw tight. "I deserve that," he murmured. After everything, after Kathleen, I stepped closer. Not to comfort, but to stand eye to eye, human to human, broken to broken. "I don't hate you, Martin. I don't hate her either. That's why I came back. Not to haunt, not to hurt, just to say goodbye, without bitterness." He looked at me like he wanted to beg for something. Time, forgiveness, another chance. But all of that was gone now. Instead, he asked quietly, "What happens now?" "I keep moving," I said. "I start over again. For real this time. No shadows. No looking back." He nodded again, slower this time. Do I tell people?" I shook my head. "No one would believe you, and it's not their story to hear." He laughed, bitter and soft. "You sound just like her." I smiled faintly. Maybe she never really left. We stood there for a few moments longer, the silence more peaceful than heavy. Then I turned to go. I didn't need to say anything else. There were no magic words left. But before I left the cemetery, I glanced back. He was sitting on the bench again, the photo still in his hands, looking down, but lighter somehow, like a part of him had finally exhaled. That evening, Carmen found me walking by the cliffs. She didn't say anything at first, just matched my pace, her hair blowing in the wind. "So, you saw him," she said eventually. I nodded. "I did. And we let go." She nodded, arms crossed against the breeze. "You okay?" "I think so," I said. "For the first time in a long time. I actually think so." "You're not planning on disappearing again, are you?" "I might," I said. "But not yet. There's one more person I need to see." Her eyebrows raised. "Kathleen." I nodded. "You sure about that?" "I need to know. I need to look her in the eye and let the past settle. Not to make her feel guilty. Not to accuse. Just to finish what was left undone." Carmen touched my arm. "You're brave, you know that. I'm just tired of carrying ghosts." She smiled. "Let me know if you need backup." I did smile at that. The next day, I found Kathleen in the park, sitting alone on a bench with a book in her lap and a coffee beside her. She looked peaceful. Lonely, but peaceful. I sat beside her without asking. She didn't look up. "You again. You remembered me." She nodded slowly. "I've been trying to place it since the cafe. Your eyes. There's something familiar about them. I was your friend once," I said gently. She froze, turned her head slowly. Her eyes locked onto mine. "What did you just say?" "I remember you, Kathleen." She blinked fast, her face going pale. "No, that's not possible. She's gone," I finished for her. "Yes, she is." Kathleen stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her coffee. "Who are you?" "The one who forgives you," I said. The color drained from her face. "What kind of sick?" "It's not sick," I said. "It's the last kindness." She stared at me, and I could see it. The fear, the confusion, the deep gnawing guilt that she had buried under excuses and silence. And I saw it rise up in her, one word away from breaking. "Open." "Why now?" she whispered. "Because if I don't let go, I'll never be free." Kathleen sat back down slowly, like her legs couldn't quite hold her up anymore. She didn't look at me, just stared out at the park, the kids playing in the distance, the wind moving through the trees, the world stubbornly continuing as If it didn't care how many hearts had broken here. I see you in my dreams sometimes, she said quietly. Sometimes we're laughing, like nothing ever went wrong. Other times you're looking at me. Like you are now. I didn't speak. I let the silence fill the space between us. I used to think maybe I was just punishing myself, she went on, imagining what you'd say if you were still alive, how you'd look at me if you knew. I did know, I said. From the moment I saw him hold your hand at my grave. She winced like I'd slapped her. Her hands clenched in her lap. It wasn't what it looked like, she whispered. It never is. She looked at me then, finally, fully. Her face was older than I remembered. Not in years, but in weight. In the kind of weariness that sits in your bones. I didn't plan it. I didn't want it. But grief. She shook her head, biting back tears. Grief is a terrible thing. It warps everything. He was all I had left of you. I was gone, and he was still here, I said. I understand that now, she nodded. But you don't forgive me. I didn't say that. You should hate me, she said bitterly. I would. I do. I did. I admitted. But it wasn't hate that brought me back. It was love. And maybe mercy. She covered her mouth with her hand. And the sob that escaped was small, but sharp. The kind that doesn't come from a place of drama, but from years of carrying something too heavy alone. I miss you, she said. Every damn day. I keep thinking about the last message you left me. The one I never answered. I remembered. That message. Just a simple voice note. Hey, call me. I had a weird dream and need to talk. You'll laugh at it probably. I never heard back. I replay it sometimes, she said. Just to hear your voice. I closed my eyes for a second, letting that pain settle somewhere deep. Not to bury it, but to acknowledge it. Like a scar that would always be there, but didn't have to stay tender forever. I'm not here to punish you, I said. I'm here to let you know I'm done holding on. Kathleen nodded, slowly, cautiously, like she didn't fully believe me. But what happens to us now? She asked. There is no us, I replied. There's just you, and whatever life you choose to live going forward. She was crying now, but she didn't hide it, and I didn't try to stop her. Some tears deserve their moment. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. I know. We sat in silence a while longer. I didn't touch her, didn't try to offer comfort. That wasn't my place anymore. Before I left, I stood and looked down at her one last time. I'm free now, I said. And so are you. She didn't respond, but the way her shoulders slumped, the way she curled into herself, it felt like a piece of the past had finally been put to rest. I walked away from that bench with no plans to come back. Not to the park, not to the town, not to them. That night, I packed my things. The small apartment above the cafe was quiet, just like the night before I died. But this time, there was no unfinished business, no lingering ache, just a quiet sense of becoming. In the morning, I'd head north. No destination, no map, just the road and the life waiting to be lived. The bus pulled out of this sleepy little town just after sunrise. The roads were empty, washed in soft golden light, and the world looked clean, almost new. I didn't look back. I'd already said goodbye to everything that mattered there. I sat by the window, watching the hills roll by, arms crossed against the chill. My bag sat beside me, half full, light enough to carry without effort. It felt symbolic somehow. I was finally traveling without the weight of the past pressing down on my shoulders. There was no plan. I didn't need one. Each mile that passed felt like another layer peeling off my skin. I was becoming something else. Not Lena, not the girl who died, not the woman who returned to forgive, just me. I thought about Martin. about the way he looked at me when I stepped out from behind that tree. I knew he'd never forget it. Not the moment, not the truth. Maybe not me, but I also knew he'd move on now. For real this time. He'd mourn what was, instead of clinging to what could never be again. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest mercy I could have given him. Carmen had texted, before I left, just one line. Wherever you go, don't stop being this brave. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She'd understand. The bus stopped a few towns over, and I stepped off for a break. A sleepy diner sat on the corner, the kind of place that smelled like burnt coffee and pancakes that had been on the griddle too long. I took a seat by the window, ordered something simple, and pulled out a notebook from my bag. Not a diary. I didn't want to write about the past anymore. Just names, places, thoughts, observations. Life. The waitress was kind, with grey hair and hands that trembled slightly when she poured my coffee. Where you headed? She asked with a smile. Don't know yet, I replied. She chuckled. Best kind of journey. I smiled back. I think so too. As the day wore on, I found myself walking more than riding, through small towns, through forests lit by the fading autumn sun, down roads with no signs and fewer people. I stayed in tiny motels, talked to strangers who never asked where I came from. That kind of freedom. It felt like breathing for the first time. Sometimes, at night, I'd lie awake and wonder about the next time I'd hear someone call my name. Not the old ones. Not Lena or her. But something new. Something mine. I didn't feel lost. I felt found. Weeks passed this way. In one small town by the river, I helped a man named Roger fix his fence. He was grumpy and quiet at first, but by the end of the day, he was telling me about his late wife and offering me sweet tea. He said I reminded him of someone who knew how to carry silence, like it was a friend. I liked that. I stayed in his guest room for a few days, helped him clean out the garage, painted his porch. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer explanations. We just existed together. It was enough. One evening, as we watched the sunset over the river, Roger turned to me and said, "You've been through something, haven't you?" I didn't. Deny it. I can see it in your eyes, he said. They're tired, but they ain't bitter. That's rare. That night, I wrote his name in my notebook, along with a single sentence. Some people don't need to know your story to love your silence. When I left, he hugged me, said I always had a place there if I needed one. It meant more than he knew. I was beginning to understand what this second life was really about. It wasn't about fixing what broke. It was about learning to live with the cracks and still seeing the beauty in the pieces. The town I found next wasn't even on most maps. Just a cluster of houses hugging a winding road, a post office the size of a bedroom, and a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and warm flour from 2 blocks away. I arrived on foot, dusty from the walk, my shoes worn at the soles, and my legs aching in a way that felt honest, real. I rented a room above the bakery from a woman named Elsie. She had silver hair pulled back into a loose braid and eyes that had seen too many years and still managed to be kind. She didn't ask where I came from. She only asked how I liked my tea. People find their way here when they've got something they're not ready to let go of, she told me the first night, as we sat by the window. But they always leave lighter. Maybe that's why I stayed. Longer than I expected. I'd meant to keep moving, but something about this town made it feel like I could breathe without thinking about it. I started helping at the bakery during the early hours, kneading dough, pouring coffee for tired faces, watching the way people smiled when they picked up something sweet, and every day, I felt a little more like someone new. I met Carmen again, Unexpectedly, she came through town on her way to a conference, stopped in for a coffee, and nearly dropped her cup when she saw me behind the counter. "You've got to be kidding me," she said, grinning in disbelief. "You're baking now." "Rolling croissants and healing trauma," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. She laughed, really laughed, and it felt good to hear it from her. She sat down and stayed for hours. We talked about everything and nothing. About Martin, who was dating again, she said, slowly, cautiously. "He still visits your grave," she added, "but less like he's waiting for something to come back, more like he's thanking it for what it gave him." I nodded, quietly grateful. "You look different," she said after a while. "Lighter, happier." "I feel it," I said. "For the first time. I think I actually feel alive." That night, after she left, I walked out to the hill behind the town. No lights, just stars above, brighter than I'd ever seen them. I lay in the grass and stared up for a long time, letting the silence hold me. I didn't cry. I didn't think about who I'd been. I just listened. To the wind, to the earth beneath me, to the soft, steady rhythm of my own breath, and I thought about Kathleen, somewhere out there in the same world, maybe learning how to forgive herself. I thought about Martin, building something new with someone else, maybe smiling a little more these days. I didn't envy them. I didn't want what they had anymore. This life, this quiet, humble, healing life, was mine, and it was enough. The next morning, I wrote something new in my notebook. Sometimes peace doesn't come from answers. Sometimes it's born the moment you stop asking. A part of me would always remember what came before, but the rest of me was already moving forward. Spring arrived quietly in that little town, without grand gestures or loud storms. Just soft winds, budding trees, and the smell of wet soil drifting through open windows. I stayed longer than I ever stayed anywhere before. The bakery became a part of me, and I, somehow, became a part of it. People started remembering my name. Not my old name, not Lena, just the one I chose now. A name no one had whispered over a grave or written in an obituary. A name without grief attached. Some mornings, I'd wake up before dawn and just sit by the window with a cup of tea, listening to the stillness. Not because I was lonely, but because I wasn't. The quiet didn't haunt me anymore. It soothed me. One day, a man named Elliot came into the bakery. He was traveling with his little boy, stopping through town on their way up north. He was kind, a bit awkward, with a gentle voice and a smile that looked like it had been buried under years of trying too hard to be strong. We talked, first about coffee, then about books, then about loss. He had lost someone too, his wife. Cancer, quick and cruel. "You ever feel like you're living two lives?" he asked one morning. "The one that ended, and the one you're still figuring out what to do with." "Every day," I said. He didn't push for details. I didn't offer any, but we understood each other. That kind of grief didn't need a backstory. His boy, Jonah, drew me pictures every time they visited, mostly trees and birds, and a son with a smiling face. One day he drew me with angel wings and gave it to me with a grin missing a front tooth. "Dad, seize your magic," he said. I laughed, but part of me wondered if he was right. Maybe I was. Maybe we all were. Just a little. Anyone who survived something they shouldn't have and still woke up every morning with softness in their chest. Elliot and Jonah left after a few weeks, but not before he asked if I wanted to visit them sometime. I told him maybe. I wasn't sure. I liked not knowing what came next. And one night, long after the bakery closed, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at the face I'd grown used to. I didn't see the girl who died in a crash. I didn't see the woman who returned to a world that didn't recognize her. I saw someone whole, someone free. I lit a candle and placed it by the window. Not for a ritual, not for closure, just for memory. One last goodbye. To Martin. To Kathleen. To the girl I used to be, and I whispered. To the wind that carried nothing and everything. He held her hand at my grave. And still, I let them go without hate. And in that moment, it didn't feel like loss anymore.